Dr. Fidel and me, Lee, acupuncture and herbalist, will talk about depression today because it becomes common problems now in the younger generation. So what is the depression? Can you define in a medical term the symptoms and what is really definition of the depression?
Well, depression in medical terms is more of a scientific explanation. So the way modern medicine sees depression is more of a chemical imbalance or a genetic issue or a diet or a lifestyle. But in the more spiritual realm, and this is where I'm teaching a lot of, is that really what's the depression are thinking patterns. It's the mind going into persistent thinking patterns. So they might be repetitive thoughts, such as, I don't feel well, I don't want to be doing this. And those could even progress to more serious thoughts, such as, I don't want to live anymore. What's happening is that the identification with those thoughts, the I don't want to live anymore, is really what's causing the depression. The ability to actually watch these thoughts without having our being, because we're not the thoughts in our mind, we're actually the being that produces those thoughts. Watch those thoughts go by without having those thoughts affect us. That's the more spiritual practice. So the person is really not depressed. The thinking pattern is of a depressive nature, and the identification with those thoughts can surely have the behavior of the person. Follow those thoughts almost like if they're under the spell of those thoughts. So as soon as the mind says, I don't want to, I got to go to sleep or I got to get out of there, immediately that thought comes up, and then the whole person is now under the control of their thinking mind, as opposed to allowing that thought to come and to go, and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have to I don't have to obey that voice in my head. I can just kind of watch that thought come and go. So that's the more spiritual understanding, that although we can have thoughts, our body we don't have to obey every thought that's in our mind.
So my question is, what's the best way? Like, the thoughts always comes and goes, and there's a happy thought and there is a bad thought, like a suicidal thoughts. And what's the best way to get rid of the thoughts, or just let those thoughts comes and goes, and so we can cope with the depression? Because we cannot just, it's not easy to get rid of the thoughts. It's always coming to our mind. So in your mindful practice or meditation, how can we cope with those bad thoughts?
So this is the difference, is that in these mindful meditations there are no more good or bad thoughts. It's just the thoughts come and go. It's not about not thinking either. The medications that are given in science are just to kind of numb the mind in a way, to numb the thinking mind.
So there's no thoughts after the medication. Is that
Oh, there's still thoughts, but the thoughts don't bother the person as much. Just like when someone drinks alcohol, the thinking mind kind of shuts down a lot, and then the person's all of a sudden happy. But then once the mind comes back in again and has these thoughts of what people are going to have to do all day, then
yes.
So in the end, what I'm saying is that it's the thoughts that are creating the suffering. That's like the final link. It can't be denied that the medications don't have an effect, because they do. Just like alcohol has an effect on the mind, so do medications. But the ultimate trigger of what's causing the depression is the identification to the thoughts in the mind.
Okay. Is that like alcohol? I don't usually drink and I don't take the medication, so I don't have the experiences to explain how alcohol and medication can change. Is that a changing thought or changing the behavior when the thought comes? Or just there's no thoughts after you're drinking, after the medication?
So every thought that comes in our mind, we have a decision whether we're going to act on that thought or not.
So the medication does not really get rid of the thoughts, is that right? Or it just numb the brain, there's no thoughts? Or it changed the behavior to the thoughts?
The medication will have an effect on the mind from a physiologic standpoint, and that's why they're titrated. There's no exact science to how it works. It's more like a person comes in, they broadcast their thoughts, the doctor listens, they give them medications, and then based upon the next interview and the broadcast of those thoughts, those medications are titrated until the person then says, oh, I feel a little bit better. And a lot of that has to do on a physiologic basis, because if I go out and I have alcohol, I could feel a lot better, and then I can say, well, yeah, the last 3 weeks I've been feeling better because
You drink every
because
day?
I'm drinking every day, and I'm really not worried about, like, I don't have those worrying thoughts anymore.
Okay.
So
it's numb the brain.
it numbs, yeah, it's altering the brain, but the core etiology is not being addressed because it's only working on the mind, not the rest
The body.
of the being.
Okay.
Because behind the thoughts is the rest of who we are. In other words, we're not just walking thinking machines, we're actually complete beings. So there's more to it than just the mind. That's what we can't just tweak the mind and then expect that that the solution will be had.
Yeah.
Because we have to address the remainder.
Yeah. So
of ourselves.
I have been treating many people with depression, and they have been taking medication for years, and initially they feel better. They don't feel depressed, and they are happy, but then they started gaining weight, and they don't have the motivation to do things. They just sit there, and there's no motivation to do anything. And sometimes they couldn't sleep, and sometimes they lose their appetite, and other people will have increased appetite. So that's why I don't recommend medication to depressed people, but there should be other way if they are on medication, they have been on medication for years, and the symptoms didn't improve, then there should be another better way to teach them. When you try the medication or high dosage of medication, then there is another better way, which I think Dr. Fidel, he personally practiced that and conquered his own mental issues and become a happy person. And so you want to explain the other way we possibly can try? I'm not saying that you should get rid of your medication. I'm saying that for people who do not respond to medication very well, or who have so much side effect from medications, you can try another way. So could you explain the other way? You guide them?
Well, the other way is just really, and this is really a realization, is I'm aware of when life is not going my way. I know that my thinking mind is not in acceptance of what life is at this moment. And that's kind of what this is all about. It's more of just a state of acceptance of what life is. Now, sure, I could use my mind to say, well, this pizza's not, tastes terrible, and I'm going to choose, provided there's a choice, I'm going to choose that slice of pizza. But if there was no other choice, then I have to accept that I have to eat this lousy piece of pizza no matter what my mind says. It might say this is disgusting, or I don't want to be here. The mind will just keep chattering along, but the reality of the situation is, look, there's no other food available, and this is what life is. So it's more of just an awareness that the mind can be in denial of what life is. The mind wants something other than what is. And that's where the thinking comes in. So even, and this still happens with me, I still have thoughts like, boy, I wish I wasn't so tired all day. I'm exhausted. But the bottom line is I'm tired and I'm exhausted. So whether my mind is chattering away at the whole system or not, the reality is still what it is. So it's more not even trying to even be happy all day. It's more just to be in acceptance of life, because the only thing that's not accepting life as it is the thinking mind.
That's great. So the first step we try to overcome depression is practicing this mindful meditation, or accepting the reality, or accepting the thoughts. And then the next step, we're going to show you some natural way to how to go another step. Not only accepting that, but also we want to be happy and also motivated to live each day, being part of the universe, and we cannot change the things around us, but we can modify something we do, like get rid of alcohol or walking outside, those natural way, and acupressure points. So we are going to explain how we use this natural healing way to get over this depression. And so next episode, we're going to talk about how we are going to cope with depression. And first acceptance, and then we are going to try a different way. And also our seminar January 23rd from 10:30 to 11:30, we're also going to show some acupressure points and mindful practice with Dr. Fidel, and hope people who wants to try something new can come to our seminar.